Hey, it's John Gaxi here in the kitchen, just showing you another quick recipe with 10 minute real foods, and I'm showing you a quick recipe today. We're doing shrimp ceviche, and so we're gonna go ahead and start out by we have some cooked shrimp here. They're already cooked, deveined, and it's very nice. You can get this pre-packaged. As you can see, I went ahead and got this Northern Chef cooked and peeled shrimp. Now, I do advise that you get it peeled already. I'd suggest that, and that's always a nice thing. You can just stick them in the fridge after they've been frozen, and they'll thaw out. You know, stick them in the night before, a couple hours before, and you'll have them ready. So we're gonna go ahead and chop these. They're all ready for us to go. We're gonna go ahead and just give them a rough chop. They don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do any particular. So as you can see, I'm just kind of crisscrossing, nothing special, no special cuts. And you kind of go through that like that, crisscrossing the knife, just making sure everything gets at least sliced in half, and that'll make them for more palatable sizes. We put that in here. And of course, if you like a more finer chop, you can go ahead and do that as well. And then we'll go ahead and cut the lines. What piece? And normally a shrimp ceviche would be curing with the lines, but here we're just adding the lines for flavor, and we're gonna add quite a bit of them, as you can see. I have this nice little lemon squeezer, so you can just go ahead and squeeze all that juice there. You can buy your juice pre-squeezed as well. And of course, I'm eyeballing everything as I normally do at home, but I'll be providing you with the specific recipes in the video or link below. Alright. So the lemon squeezer adds a nice touch because you don't have to use a machine, or you don't have to, it's just easier to clean and easier to use. As you can see. And interestingly enough, we talked about 10 minutes. It's actually in real time, so we're showing you what's happening here. So I'm actually going to leave it at that. I have 2 lines left, but I want to make sure that the flavors are okay. So we're gonna mix that up a little bit. We're gonna add all the seasonings, which is salt. We're gonna add some pepper. As you desire. It's good. We're gonna add some Worcestershire sauce, and so just so you know, this has white vinegar, sugar, molasses water, salt, onions, anchovies, garlic, so it gives it a nice flavor like the real deal. We're gonna add some spice and Tabasco, so some red pepper and vinegar, and then we're going to add some V8 juice or tomato juice, and I have a low sodium option here since I want to keep that pretty much at bay. We already added some salt as well. And then now we're going to go into the vegetables. So we're going to start by chopping the celery first. And the reason you want to start with the celery is because the celery gives it a nice flavor, and it gives it a nice texture. And it's really because since we're not using the shrimp cocktail sauce, we really want this celery flavor to come out. So we are going to chop that. And we give it some pulses, and that's kind of what you want it to look like. Just a little beyond, in between a fine chop and a coarse chop. So I'll put that in this bowl here, and the reason I'm not going to mix it with the other ones is because I don't want to over chop this and make it too soupy. But other than that, you just grab your purple onion, which adds much better flavor, I think, than a yellow or a white onion. And the nice thing is you can just cut it in fours. You take off that unwanted skin, throw it in there. Unwanted skin, so there's no crying. And you don't have to worry about chopping this in any particular way either. Chop it in four. There we go. What you want to do is you want to pulse it, because you still want those whole pieces, but you want it fine enough. And then we're going to add in the cucumber. Now this isn't your typical cucumber. These are actually smaller. I believe they call them Persian cucumbers. And you know, there's nothing really particular about them. They tend to be a little stronger in flavor, but the flavor is still mild. What I do is I just cut them in half and cut them in lengthwise and to here. You don't have to do all that when you cut the ends off. You don't have to do all that, but since I went ahead and pre-chopped them, normally I would chop them all together. I just forgot, I didn't add that. So you add those in here, however many you want. And like I said, there's no particular flavor. You can use any kind of cucumber. Regular cucumber is fine. Just want to make sure that the consistency is fine. A little more. And I am crying over here. The consistency is just about right. There might be some more pieces, but like I said, that's my fault. You could add them. You could add the cucumber and the onions all together. You don't have to separate them like I did. I'll go ahead and take that big piece out. And then lastly, I'm going to take all this back in, and I'm going to chop, once I finish crying, the cilantro. So put that in there. And the cilantro, the finer you have it, the more intense the flavor will be. Depending on your preference, you go ahead and chop it however you want. There's really no right or wrong with this. And I think just a little bit. There you go. And of course, you don't want to do it too much, because then you'll just end up creaming the cilantro, and that's not the desired consistency that you want for a ceviche. So I go ahead and add that. I'm not going to add all of it. I add in the celery. Alright, we won't add all of it there. And then we'll just go ahead and mix it. I think it's had enough time to marinate in there. And like I said, we'll just take out these big chunks, no problem. Unless you like big chunks. We'll mix it all up. And it serves to show us these big chunks. And then lastly, or as far as chopping vegetables, we're going to do the tomatoes and we're going to do the avocados. I'll go ahead and start with the tomatoes. We'll go ahead and chop it and put these back in the bowl here. And one thing that I noticed helps me kind of keep this area clean is have this bowl here where I can just throw in all my garbage, and then I can just dump it in the trash when I'm done. Now this is probably what will take the most in chopping, is the tomatoes. If you don't mind having a juicier ceviche or a more mushy tomato, then by all means use the food processor. These tomatoes just happen to be a little overripe, and so I don't want to risk having them too mushy in the I like to taste that tomato flavor and that tomato texture. But not a big deal. Just roughly chop them. If you want to have some tomato, we already put the tomato cocktail in there, so it's not necessary, but it is a nice flavor. All right. And as you can see, not very particular about the sizes either. When it comes to the tomatoes, you can keep them at medium-sized pieces. They don't necessarily have to be small or ultra fine. In reality, the recipe revolves around tomatoes. You can see from our sauces to the whole item, the whole product. And you can just eyeball it, see if maybe you won't need all the tomatoes like I have here. But of course, I mentioned that I would provide the recipe, so I will provide you the recipe with what I'm doing here. I think we'll just add one more tomato. We can do without that one. Now, I really like this recipe because obviously it's really quick. It's much less time from the original recipe, which can take up to 2.5 hours. And tasty by all means, but sometimes it takes longer to make than it does to eat it. And it's a great recipe. It's great for lunch. You can make it the night before, and it's just one of those flavors that you don't really get tired of. So we've added, and I did forget, we want to add just a little bit of vinegar. I added about 3 caps. And that offsets the acidity of the lime. And then finally, we want to add the avocados. And avocados always add a nice touch. A lot of Latin foods or Mexican foods tend to be really nice. That extra added fat flavor. So what I do here to make it easier, instead of scooping it out and trying to cut it, I just run the knife through like this, and I just score it all the way until I feel the end, the rind. You don't want to put too much pressure and cut yourself, or cut through the rind and then cut your hand. If that's the issue, you can always put it on a flat surface and go that way. And then what I do is I just go ahead and put the spoon between the rind and the avocado, and you just run it through. Now there are special gadgets that help you run through. You can use them for avocados or mangoes, but you can. That's also another trick. And then when you want to get the pit out, you just put the knife through it. It buries it in there, and then you just twist it, and then you can let go of that. So we'll do this, and actually I'll show you on the surface what it would look like. And you can add as much pressure as you'd like on the surface, because of course your hand's not on the other side. Oops. And then you just go across. And this is the same technique that I use for mangoes. And I have another additional technique for mangoes, which you'll see in a later episode, which takes all the knife and the guesswork out of it. So that's that for the ceviche. And make sure you mix it all up nicely. Now I'm gonna go ahead and try it, and if there's anything missing, I'll go ahead and add it. That's how I taste my final products, and then of course I'll give you the perfect one, or I should say the 10-minute one. I think we're gonna add the last 4 limes, and we're gonna add a couple of other things. Might have underestimated the amount, but all in all, the flavor is there. The acidity is the limit, and the contrast that it makes with the vinegar is really nice. The tomato also cuts through that acidity, so it gives it just a nice balance. And then of cource the cilantro just finishes off with that aftertaste. So actually I'm going to go ahead and add everything. Add that in. And the rest of the cilantro in. And we're gonna add a little bit more of all the sauces. And in reality, that's how I test and try my recipes. I just kind of go for it, see what feels right. And then once I like the flavor, then I go back and measure everything. And that's how you're able to get, can take all the guesswork out for you. Finally, a little bit more tomato sauce. And this is just, like I said, regular tomato, a tomato blend with other vegetables. And add a little bit more of the Worcestershire sauce. And that's it. So we mix it all up. You know, it keeps well. The shrimp is cooked, so you don't have to worry about it. It tastes best cold. All the items were straight out of the fridge. Washed them. And if you keep it for another day or two, it tastes wonderful. So thanks for joining us here. And finally, we're gonna, of course, try it out. I got some tostadas here. Just gonna go ahead and put some of this goodness here. And as you can see, 2.5 hours into 10 minutes. Give you the rest of the time to enjoy the food. So this is John Gatsy signing off to enjoy my ceviche, 10-minute ceviche. Very good. Very good.